Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of our weekly coaching webinar. I just realized I came in a couple minutes late, which is unusual. I was trying to think about what we're all going to go through today, and I think I got lost track of time. So today we're going to be talking about customer journey. We're going to be talking about mapping out your customer journey, and this is something that, man, you should really think about doing this before you even create the customer journey. But you're definitely going to need to do this after you've created the customer journey, and this is something I really see very, very, very few people do. And the very few I do see do it typically don't do it correctly. So today we're going to talk about this. We're going to map this out. We're going to look at what you should be doing to look at the individual processes that you have in your company. So for example, maybe it's how your sales team handles a lead from the minute they get the lead until after closing, or maybe it's how your marketing team first runs an ad and what happens with that customer all the way to get to your sales team, or just your entire customer journey at once, looking at everything that your customer experiences. Now, what is a customer journey? It's defined differently depending on who you look at. I pulled this graphic up really quick here from Dasta, and this kind of maps out a typical customer journey where you have awareness, where they first become aware of you, findable, where they're finding you in search here, the reputation or the research they're doing, the conversion to purchase, and then the advocacy after the purchase. Now, I can tell you that there's no set amount of 5 stages here. They're definitely called different things. I could pull up all different kinds of graphics here that show different representations of the customer journey. But the bottom line is it's really this awareness process, or it's this process of from when they first realize you exist, the stages they go through to buy, and then what happens after they buy. Okay, and this is really a process that you want to map out, because every time you do, it's just mind-blowing of how much stuff you run into that makes no sense. Because what happens is once you kind of put together processes and you kind of say, okay, customer comes in and this happens, and then you build something to solve a problem here, and then you move on, and then you come back a year later and this what you built doesn't make any sense anymore. So I'll give you an example. When I owned a credit repair company, when the customer would come in, they would immediately start getting emails from us. They would immediately start getting phone calls from us. There's a lot of things that happen in that process. Well, of course, we do that to, make the process smoother, to solve problems. So we created an email sequence that the customers would get emails after enrollment, because they had all kinds of questions and we didn't want them calling our customer service team. So after we kept getting all these calls, we started getting the, mapping out or listing the reasons for the calls. Then we started creating emails for every one of those calls, and we built an email sequence, right? That makes sense. It solves the problem. But then you walk away from that. And a year later, a year and a half later, 2 years later, you come back and you look at those emails and you go, what the heck was I thinking? Like, so much has changed and none of this content has changed with it. That is very typical for any business. You come in, you realize there's a problem. Oh, my customers are calling all the time. How do I stop that? Well, let me give them emails to answer those questions instead. You build those emails, you'll walk away, right? And then all of a sudden, after time goes by, you realize that content in those emails isn't relevant to your current processes. Things have changed. So this is why you constantly have to map out a customer journey, because if you don't, then what happens is there's so many stages to these processes of, ads, and you're running an awareness, and how you're on online search, and the research they're doing, the blogs and social media, and the purchase decision, and how your salesmen and saleswomen convert, and what happens after the sale. There's so many steps involved here as your business grows that you'll eventually get to hundreds of things that happen, and it becomes almost impossible just to randomly go through and check these things. So how do you do these things? Well, that's where I really think that you need to do a customer journey whiteboard mapping. And this is something that we do a lot here at Credit Suite. We look through our different divisions, and we start from beginning to very end of their processes, and we map out exactly what is going on. We look at things through every single stage of the process to say, does this make sense? What should we change? Do we still like this? And if we don't, then we make changes, and we go through that and try to do that twice a year to make sure that everything in these processes makes sense, that it's up to date, that it's accurate. And every time we do it, we come across these massive, big thought processes where we move giant leaps ahead because we realize that there's a better way to do things than we were doing things 6 months before. So first of all, my advice is that you do this twice a year, every 6 months. My advice is that you do this every division that you have. If you're too small to have a division yet, that's perfect, even better, because you only have to do it once throughout the entire process that your customer goes through from beginning to end. But as you get bigger, you're going to have separate divisions, and then it becomes impossible to do that. You have to start breaking it down, looking at each division's process. But no matter your size, you still should be doing this. You should be looking at what happens when a customer first becomes aware, all the way through to them becoming advocates out there, spreading the word and talking more about you. So today, this is exactly what we're going to do. I have a little sample whiteboard here that I got from Microsoft for free as a download, and I am going to kind of show you how we would do this process here at Credit Suite. And again, don't feel like you have to go to Vendasta here to get this customer journey. I just did a random Google search to come up with this graphic, and I'm interested to see, although back button does not seem to work here. Okay, so I'm interested to see here, there's a lot of these different graphics that you're going to find. So as we look at this one, they have it worded a little bit different, right? Awareness, consideration, purchase, retention, advocacy. So everywhere you see, they're going to map it out a little bit differently. There's no set amount of steps. There's no set definition of the steps. But again, I don't really compare these graphics to the process. I just look at from the very first thing they see what the experience is. So I'm going to start this on our marketing side. I'm going to kind of give you an example of how this will work, but I'm not going to start on our ads because I don't even think I can access our Facebook ads anymore. I haven't looked in my Facebook account for over a year because that's handled by our marketing team. So I was looking and I don't even think I can still access our Facebook ads anymore. So as a result of that, I'm going to start right here on our landing page. But that is exactly what we would do. So we would start here with a little whiteboard, and we would come in and basically say, okay, you know, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to get leads here from, let's say, Facebook, right? And then we're also going to come in here and we're going to get leads here from Google. So I like to get these as different lead sources, okay, Google, or you can do these as just one big box and say, okay, well, our leads come from here. This is the very first step of awareness. The customer first sees us here in these different places. And let's look at each one of these different places. The first thing that you would do then is you would look at your actual ads, Facebook. Let's look at Google. Let's look at what these ads actually look like. Let me see if I could just run a Google search real quick and see if I could find whatever ads. Let me see, business credit with no personal guarantee. Oh, no, this is a random shot to see here if I could even be able to pull up any ads for us, but I'm just trying to get an idea here of, okay, so here we go, perfect, boom, okay. So we would look right here. So we would start right here, we'd say, okay, let's look at one of our Google ads. Does this make sense? Free 4-step guide shows how to build real business credit even without cash flow, gain business capital, get business loans and credit lines, build business credit, improve fundability. So the very first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at this and say, does this ad make sense? Do we like this? Do we like this search term? Do we like this? Now, in a real scenario, we would probably pull up the Google data from this. We would wanna see how well this ad is performing. We would wanna look at some other ads here to see how these ads are performing. Maybe you're not running Google ads. Maybe you're not running Facebook ads. Then at the top of your box here, the top of your whiteboard, you're gonna have wherever the sources that you get customers from. Maybe you get it from organic Facebook. Maybe you do Facebook live posts and that's where your customers from. Maybe you do YouTube videos. Whatever that may be, you're gonna map out what step one is, and then you're gonna basically look at it. Does this content make sense? Do we like how this all looks? Okay, should we change this wording? And again, that's not just based on look and feel. We're gonna look and see at this moment how it performs. What's our open rates on this? What's our click-through rate? What are we paying per ad? Are we comfortable with what we're paying to get people to click through? Are we comfortable with what they see here on the other side when they actually go through? So again, we're gonna look at every stage of this, okay? In this case, how can I give this credit? Well, okay, I like this. I like the ad looks good, Then we're gonna click and we're gonna open up the landing page, which in our case was gonna be step 2, right? So in this case, we're gonna bring them from ads here, and we're going to bring him down to what we call a landing page, okay? And a landing page, and you can like my rudimentary drawings here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to evaluate these landing pages. We're going to look at one or some of these actual landing pages to see, do we like this? Free 4-step guide reveals how to legitimately get business credit to grow your business, even when you think you can't qualify, regardless of customer credit issues, lack of collateral, or been denied by banks. Okay, download the free guide now. So we're going to look at all this content. Do we like this? Now, we noticed when we looked at ours that, we've now made the Inc. 5000. So we want the Inc. 5000 logo to be here, not just the Inc. logo. So that was one of the changes that we made on a recent review we did with our finance team. We like that these 5 stars are here, bullets, everything looks good. So we're going to look through this and talk through. Now, when I say we, I mean you should do this with your team. You really shouldn't do this alone unless you're a solopreneur. And if you are, then that's great as well. But as you start to accumulate a team, what you want to do is go through this with your team as well. You want to work with this as one big team effort so everybody can have a contribution. And again, you're not just going by look and feel. We're going to look at our conversion rates here. What are our conversion rates on this? How many people are clicking? Of those people that click, how many people entered their information? Or do we like the results that we're getting? Is there any wording here that we would change? Would we like to highlight certain things in this wording, for example, that we don't have highlighted now? Are we okay with the buttons? Are we okay with the graphics? When we click this button, are we okay with what it says here? Are we okay with the look and feel? Okay, so again, we're really coming through every aspect of this landing page to really try to determine, are we happy with what we see? Okay, if we're happy with what we see, okay, we say, okay, great. Here's the changes we're going to make. So far, we're going to make these wording changes to the ads that we've determined. So far, we've determined that we wanted to highlight a couple words that we didn't have highlighted. We want to add our Inc. 5000 logo versus our Inc. logo here. We like the bullets. We like this. Everything else looks good. So those are the only changes that we're actually going to make. So we've come through, and so far the first couple stages of the journey are good for us. So the next thing we're going to do is say, well, what happens if they come in and if they actually enter their information? Well, then the first thing they're going to do with us is they're going to go here, and we call this our indoctrination sequence. And the indoctrination sequence is basically the first emails that they actually get from us. So we're going to come here and we're going to say, okay, we want to look, and they're going to come in and get our indoctrination sequence emails. So do we like those indoctrination sequence emails? So we're not going to look through, because you can imagine, we've got a lot of emails, right? We have like 3-4 years of emails after this indoctrination sequence. So we're not going to look through every one, but although it's not a bad idea. And by the way, once a year, we do look through and open every single email we have and go through it. But in this case, when we're mapping out customer journey, we're not really doing that. Instead, what we're doing is we're actually just coming in and looking at some of the sample emails to see what we like. Now you can see here that email 1 used to be welcome $250,000 webinar. And now what we've done is we've now changed this. Okay, so we've actually changed this, and this has been removed as a result of what we did. And we now actually replace this with what we call a fundability quiz to see how fundable their business is. So we're going to look through that. And as part of this process, we said, okay, does this make sense? Well, the very first email in our indoctrination sequence is this one. Welcome, how to get a $250,000 business credit webinar. Are we okay with that? And we looked at this and said, nah, not really. We don't really like this idea of them getting a long form email like this anymore. Okay, we don't really want them to get pushed into a webinar right away. Instead, what we really want to do now is we really want to come in and we want to put them into a fundability quiz. So what we're going to do here, and I might even put that here. Okay, so the indoctrination sequence, what that really is in this, we're going to go ahead and maybe put a little arrow here and say we're going to go ahead and put the funding quiz. Okay, so we're going to put a quiz here. So we've changed this now. We say, okay, look, we don't like this process anymore. 6 months ago, we were pushing a webinar. Since then, we've been testing quizzes and found really good success. So instead, what we're going to do is we're no longer going to make this email number 1. Now what we're actually going to do is we're going to come in and we're actually going to do our fundability quiz instead. Okay, and then what are we going to do with that after that fundability quiz? Well, let's look at email 2. So we can open up each email in the sequence to see if what we're doing actually still makes sense. Now, our logic here with email 2 in the past has been that we want to give them quick wins. We want to give them a lot of value very quickly in the sequence. Basically, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to condition our subscribers to understand that when you open our emails, you're going to get something cool. And if we do that very early, then we condition them that, hey, I want to open this email because usually it contains something cool. So in this case, we're going to say, hey, look, one of the first steps in building business credit is you got to get your DUNS number. Here's a link to get it for free. Here's a snapshot of what that looks like. Okay, here's what your DUNS number matters, and it typically takes 4 weeks to get. And you can click this link to go ahead and get it. And hey, don't forget to register for that special webinar. Remember, we were promoting that webinar in email 1. So you can see here that we're looking through this, and in this case, in our review, we said we like this. We still like these easy wins that they're getting, and I don't know how to. I gotta figure out how to pull this thing whole left and right. Oh wait, can I do that? No. Oh, that didn't do that. Oh, did I do that? Yeah, I might have done that. Yeah, maybe I did that. I could have messed this whole thing up now. All right, so let me go ahead and just move. Let me move this up and try to open up the rest of this stuff here. I'm gonna try to come in here, and I'm gonna try to see if I can open up the rest of what's hidden here to get to some of the stuff. It's not okay. Fundability. Okay, cool. So I'm trying to get some of these other emails so I can show you this real example here, but take a little bit of time here. Should be easier, but it's not. Okay, so there we go. All right, so then what we're going to do is go through every single one of the emails in our indoctrination sequence. So vulnerability, introducing our loan qualification chatbot. So in this case, what we're thinking is, hey, look, we want to get them engaged with us in Facebook Messenger. So a lot of entrepreneurs ask if they can get a business loan. We created your own Credit Suite chatbot to help answer that question. Click here to get started. So what we're doing here, and our goal is we immediately want to subdivide. We immediately want to segment our audience. So this is a little bit advanced, but what we're doing now is we're segmenting our audience. So we're saying, look, are you looking for funding? Are you looking for business credit? And this was one of our easy ways to figure that out. Do you qualify for funding or you don't? And the other goal here is that we're pushing them to our chat bot on Facebook, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get them into Facebook Messenger to engage with us, so we can then use Facebook Messenger as another way to communicate with them, to send them offers, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, this has now changed. In our new sequence in our review, we've now removed this email. We're not doing this anymore. And the reason we're not going to do it anymore is because Facebook Messenger has changed. Facebook Messenger now makes it near impossible for you to actually send email or message solicitations to them unless they're engaging with you every day or every other day. But at the time we did this 6 months ago, it wasn't like that. We could start building a massive Facebook Messenger list, and we could blast them stuff anytime we wanted to blast them stuff. Facebook has really pulled back on that. This is why you look at your customer journey, because in this example, this is no longer relative. This email really is no longer relative, because what's happening here is that Facebook Messenger's changed, and we don't want to push them to Facebook Messenger anymore, because even if they engage with us through Facebook Messenger, we still can't send solicitations to them really through Facebook Messenger. So we don't want to waste this real estate on something else. And again, I'm giving you this as an example so you can see why you do customer journeys. When we look at this, we're in email 3 in our indoctrination sequence. And so far of email 3, email 1 and email 3 are no longer valid. These are no longer emails that we would even want to do anymore. So this is exactly why you want to do this process, because as you can see, going through, and this is our indoctrination sequence, like this is what we consider to be our most valuable real estate. So again, it's a pretty big deal that of the first 3 emails that we've sent in the past, we no longer are sending emails 2 or 3. I'm trying to pull this over here to expand this out. So I can get to these other emails. Okay, so we're going to come through and continue to do that. So let's look here. This is another email, what we can do for you. So we're going to look at this. And again, every email we're going to look through to make sure, does it still make sense? Are we still trying to do the same things that we were doing in this sequence? One of our biggest questions we get is, how can we help? Well, it's time to discover what we can do to help. Click here. Okay, so this is straight up what we can do to help you. And you can see that email 5. So what ultimately happened is email 1 was a webinar. Email 2 was done in Bradstreet. Email 3, we were getting into that chat bot. Email 4, which I can't seem to pull up here, which I'm going to try to pull up email 4 if it's going to let me. Then email 4 was another easy win. So we came in here and we actually gave them another easy win. And then what we're doing is then we're coming here to email 5 and email 4. And I'm going to try to open these up just to kind of show you a little bit about how we work. Okay, there we go. So first of all, this should never be built this way. I'm sure there's a better way to do it that I'm not saying. But anyways, so email 4 then was getting them set up with Experian. So if you look at our mentality here, it's changed over the time. And I'll give you an example of this. So when we built this, our idea was, okay, look, email 1 gives them what we really want, push them into a webinar. Email 2, easy win with Dun & Bradstreet setup. We want to give them something to look forward to, get them conditioned to liking our emails. Email 3, then we actually had getting them into Messenger because we wanted to open up another way to communicate. Email 4, we came back here to another easy win. Hey, you want to get set up with Experian? Here's what you do. See, what we're doing is providing value and giving them easy tips to be able to show them, wow, these guys are awesome, man. I mean, I got 4 emails from them, and now I'm set up with Dun & Bradstreet, and I'm set up with Experian. Like right there in the first 4 emails, I got that done. If that happened to you, you're going to want to see email 5, right? Well, then guess what? Email 5, we're actually coming in, and in email 5 is where we're coming in and we're actually saying what we do. So if you look at that, that was our mentality. Let's get them into a webinar. The PSs in these webinar, or the PSs in these emails, oftentimes push to the webinar because the webinar was the primary goal, was to get them into that webinar. Then we give them these easy wins in these emails 2 and 4. Easy wins in emails 2 and 4. And then 5, we come right in and we say, okay, you know what we want to do now is email 3 was a chatbot. Then email 5, we're actually asking them to take a look at us. Here's what we can do for you. So in the first 5 emails, we've given them a bunch of value. We've got them onto another secondary list through Messenger, and we've told them what we do. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good start ramp up of what we're trying to do. Okay, now what we're trying to do is say, okay, what if they didn't want that webinar? What if they didn't like the 250K webinar? And that's why so far in the PSs and in email 1, they didn't register for the webinar. So now what we've decided to do is we're going to come into another one. We're going to come over here and we're going to introduce them to another webinar about how Christine got over $500,000 in business credit. So now we're coming in and pushing them into another webinar, okay, and et cetera, et cetera. I won't walk you through these all, but here's a 1-minute video tip, email 7. So you can just see our mindset here. What we're basically trying to do is come in, give them, this is a 1-minute video tip. So we're trying to give them these easy wins. Here's a quick 1-minute tip on how to start building business credit right away with vendors. So you can see that we're really incorporating here easy wins, easy tips, along with what we really want them to do, which is go into a webinar. So the reason we do customer journeys is when we looked at this, we said, we're not really want this anymore. We don't really we like these easy wins, but we don't want to keep pushing people to webinars, because if they register for the first webinar, they're probably going to see a lot of the same information in the second webinar. And let's be honest, a lot of people don't engage with webinars anymore. They engage in different ways. So then what we said is, well, what do we want to do? Well, what we want to do now, instead of offering them $250,000 webinars, what we really want to do is we really want to come into this email that's performing really well, the fundability quiz. Since this is performing so well for us, what we now want to do is we want to come in and we want to change this up to now seeing a quiz instead of a 250K webinar. Yesterday, you watched a video making sure that your business is fundable. We developed a special quiz that you can use to find out how fundable your business is right now, some ways to improve it. Click here to take the fundability quiz. So now what we've done is we now moved this. We said, look, our journey has changed. We now want this to be this quiz at the very first beginning. And the reason we wanted to do it is because what we want to do now is we want to create 2 paths. We're going to do something we've never done. We're going to actually come right over here to this, and we're actually going to create 2 paths for them. We're now going to create a business credit indoctrination series sequence. I'm going to put I there. And we're also going to go ahead and create a funding indoctrination sequence. So now what we want to do is, for the first time ever, we want to actually come in and we want to actually separate the customer based on what they can actually qualify and get. So now the customer comes in off our ads, they go to that landing page, which looks good. They go to that indoctrination sequence. The first thing they see is that fundability quiz, and we're separating them. How are we separating them? We're separating them based on whether they can get funding or they can't. If they can get funding, well, then we want them to go into a different indoctrination sequence that talks all about funding. Okay, if they don't qualify for funding, or if they came in and they wanted business credit originally, and we were actually making this determination, I shouldn't have actually done this. What I should do is this. None of that happened. Act like none of that happened. We're actually doing this. we're actually coming in and saying, okay, what we want is from the landing page they enrolled with, they're either going to go into business credit or indoctrination. So the landing page here, if they're on a business credit landing page like this one, they're obviously interested in business credit. So instead of then teaching them all about funding, what we're going to do is we're going to put them into a separate sequence that just talks about business credit, that easy Experian win, the easy Dun & Bradstreet win, etc. Then if they came in off a funding landing page, like 27 killer ways to get financing for your business, then we're going to put them into a funding indoctrination sequence instead. Now, here's the deal. If they come in the first indoctrination sequence, remember the first email they get's this quiz, and the quiz is going to determine if they can get funding or they can't. Well, if they can't get funding and they take this quiz and they can't get funding, no funding, because they don't qualify, no funding. Well, then it'd be pretty messed up for us to then teach them all about the cool funding they can get if they can't get it, right? That's pretty messed up. It's jacked up. So if they come in here and they take the quiz and they can't get funding, then what we were going to do is we're going to go ahead and put them into a third sequence here that says DQ, can't qualify for funding, but wants it, okay? So now our sequence looks like this. We've got ads, they go to a landing page. If they wanted business credit, we send them into getting some business credit indoctrination emails. If they wanted funding, we put them into some funding indoctrination emails, okay? But the very first, no matter which sequence they go into, business credit or funding, the very first email they're gonna get actually comes right back down to this quiz. Okay, this is not working well. It works better on a whiteboard. So regardless of whether they came in for business credit or funding, the first email they get is quiz. Now, based on the quiz, if they can't qualify for funding, well, then they're actually going to get pulled out of either one of these and they're going to be put into if they came in on a funding landing page, but they don't qualify, well, then we're going to put them in this want funding but don't qualify sequence. And so if you think about what we're doing here and why we map out customer journeys, this makes a lot of sense. You came in to get a guide, and this guide was about building business credit. You came in and you started getting emails about business credit. We came in here and we started, first thing we did was we give you a fundability quiz, see how fundable your business is, see if you take it or not. We start giving you these easy wins, Dun & Bradstreet setup, Experian setup. We start teaching you here about business credit, right? Now, if you came in for funding here on our sequence, if you come into our funding sequence instead, I'm not going to put you into a sequence where you want money, loans, and credit lines and start helping you get set up with Experian. That doesn't make any sense. Think about it. If you came in off a landing page of 27 killer ways to get financing, and then you come in and start getting emails about getting your Experian set up, that's a complete disconnect. So now we've decided now we want to start talking to them about stuff like this. Do you qualify for funding? Well, here's our fundability chatbot, et cetera, et cetera. So we start introducing them to funding type of emails instead. But what if they came in and they took the quiz and they can't get funding, but they came in off a landing page wanting funding? Well, now we create this third sequence that says, I know you want funding, but you can't get it. And what this third sequence does is it basically says, look, here's what it takes to qualify for funding, but since you can't get it, you can still build business credit. And so now what we're doing is we're basically setting up in this DQ sequence saying, hey, look, I know you want funding, but it takes cash flow credit or collateral to qualify. You don't have that, but no worries. You can still get business credit. Here's the benefits of business credit. Here's why you want business credit. Here's why business credit's awesome. And by the way, boom, now you're in the business credit indoctrination sequence. So what this allows us to do is better segment an audience. Now, you see why you map this out? Look at the changes from where we started with. We started where they came in, they got a webinar for $250,000. They got some easy wins. Even if they wanted loans, they came in and started getting exposed to our easy wins were all about them setting up with D&B and Experian, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we pushed them to a fundability quiz as the 10th email that they were even going to get here. And we looked at this and said that we don't like this anymore. After we've mapped it out, this doesn't make sense. So what does make sense? Well, now based on the landing page, they go to business credit or financing, okay? And then they go into the indoctrination sequence no matter which one of these they get. They take this quiz to see how fundable they are. And then they came in with business credit. They still stay in the business credit sequence. They came in for funding and they qualify for funding, then they stay in the funding sequence, which gives them easy wins for funding. So an easy win for funding is, hey, let us help you check your Secretary of State to make sure that the information there matches what you're going to put on your application, because that's one of the biggest reasons people get denied. We gave them a quick tip. Hey, businesses typically get denied because the information in Secretary of State doesn't match okay, what you have on your application. So we're going to give you an easy win, link you to your Secretary of State so you could do a search. But if they want funding and can't get it, then we put them into a DQ sequence, a disqualify, which basically doesn't say, hey, you don't qualify. It says, hey, you know, like, here's what it takes to qualify. You might not have that. And if you don't worry, because you can still build business credit. Then we talk about the benefits of business credit and build them and put them here into this indoctrination sequence, right? And then in our case, with all three of these, regardless of what happens here, we then put them into our basically follow-up emails. Okay, and that's basically, and this is a very rudimentary look of how this process works in one division. Okay, so when we put them into emails, okay, emails, okay. So now they just get our normal follow-up sequence after they've went through this. So this kind of looks like what a customer journey looks like on our marketing. They see our ads, they see a landing page. Based on the landing page, now they're going to go into a business credit or funding sequence. First thing they're going to do is take this quiz. Okay, if they want business credit, they're still going to go through our business credit sequence, get these easy wins, et cetera, et cetera. Then they're going to get follow-up emails. If they wanted funding and qualify for funding, they're in these getting this indoctrination sequence about emails about funding. Okay, if they want funding and can't get it, they go into this disqualify sequence, which says, hey, you know, here's what it takes to get money. Kind of, if you don't meet that, no worries, you can get business credit, drop them back into business credit, and then all roads lead to follow-up emails. Okay. So this is kind of a look at what a customer journey really looks like. Now, what's the goal of all these emails? Well, the goal, oh, that doesn't work, right? So the goal of all these emails then is, for example, and let me just restart this right here. Right? Whoa. Okay, let me start it back over here. Okay, so the goals of these emails in our world is to do one thing, which is get them into a consult, right? And now this can continue. Now this is really where our sales process takes over. So we wouldn't do anything more here on the marketing. If I was in a marketing team meeting as we just had, that we just mapped all this new process out, we would stop here because we're done. Like, this is a sales process now. This is a sales meeting. Hey, leads come to you from step one being a consult, right? And then the next thing you do in sales is then what? You get them on a phone call. And then the question then, and just to give you an idea before I go too far down this rabbit hole, we would look at, hey, what do these consults look like? You know, in marketing, what do these consult emails look like? Do we like the way that these look? Okay, and then if we started our sales customer journey walkthrough, we'd say, what do these calls look like? We'd listen to these calls. We would look at how fast they're calling somebody back. How fast is okay? Well, this should really be in 1 hour. They should get somebody back. They should get somebody on the phone in an hour. They should be calling or less. Okay, so this is what it would look like on the sales side. Okay, you get a lead from a consult. You got to call in 1 hour. Let's listen to these calls. Let's hear what we like to say. What happens on that call? Well, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to map that out on a script, right? And then what we're going to do in this case is we're actually going to look at the script. Okay, now maybe you get to this point and you say, what happens on these calls? And you listen to these calls and you're like, oh man, it's all over the board. Now we know we need a script. So now calls are going to be executed based on a script, right? And then the script is designed to do. So you can see it, you're just mapping it all out. Now we're not done here. When we're looking at this, we're saying, okay, what else do we want to have happen here in the indoctrination sequence? Well, in the marketing side, what we said is, okay, well, what happens if they're opening these emails? If they are clicking through, the question becomes, if somebody's opening this email, are they more interested in what we have than somebody that's not opening the email? Yeah, chances are pretty good. A good indicator that they're interested in what we're telling them is that they're opening the emails. So what we do now is, in the marketing side, we said, okay, well, look, if they're opening these emails and we're seeing that happen, then what we also want to do in these sequences is then what we really want to do is let's come in and let's then show them some Facebook ads. And what we're going to do with these Facebook ads, guess what we're going to promote in the Facebook ads? We are going to promote what we want them to do, which is consult. So this is what this actually looks like. And this is really just took place with us. Everything I just showed you is real. This all just happened. So we said, okay, if they're opening these emails, that's an indicator that they're interested. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start showing them Facebook ads that promote a consultation. Now, again, I'm not sitting with my marketing team and talking about the sales process. That would be another customer journey. but you can see here that we're coming in and saying, okay, if they're interested here, we're going to show them Facebook ads. Okay. The other thing we're going to do in these emails is we're going to sell them nav as well. We're going to go ahead and sell them credit monitoring. Well, guess what? If they're interested in getting credit monitoring, okay, I'm going to put monitor here. Or I can't put all that in here, but I'm going to put mon in here. Well, if they're buying this and they're buying something, well, that's an even further indicator they're interested. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and send them a direct mail piece, because now I got somebody that's clicking emails, okay, that's actually bought something from the emails, credit monitoring. That's a good indicator that they want more information on business credit. They're interested. So we're going to send them direct mail. Now we're going to invest some extra money here, and this costs money. So we don't want to do this if they're not interested, and we're going to send them direct mail. So now all of a sudden in our new funnel, we're segmenting audiences, business credit funding, no funding. And again, if this is advanced, that's okay. The whole purpose of this isn't to show you what our entire system is for you to duplicate it. It's complicated, okay? There's a reason we never did anything like this until right now, right? We have a marketing team that allows us to do this, and it's big enough and these type of things. So actually, I missed a question here. I think Regina asked a question. Let me look and see. Okay, Regina says, has this been updated in the back office for executive members? We're testing this right now, and it will be. But again, everything I'm showing you right now, none of this has even taken place on our side yet. So everything that takes place on the ultimate side, for example, when we always update our funnel emails in our ultimate program. So if you're ultimate, you get access to our emails when they're updated. But what I'm showing you is conceptual. Like, we haven't even done this. As a matter of fact, my to-do list is full of creating these emails in this new funding sequence and this disqualification sequence. I now am writing the content for these. The sales team is mapping out a whole new quiz page, because that's one of the things. When we looked at this quiz page, we said, well, that sucks. So we need to develop a better quiz page here. So the answer is yes. If you're ultimate, you're having access to these actual emails because we update them in our system and they get updated in yours, but we would never do that unless all this stuff is tested. We have to test all this stuff to make sure that it actually works. Right now, it's just conceptual that we think that this may do certain things. So again, this is pretty much what the process looks like. You know, they come in, their landing page, they come in the indoctrination sequence there. You can see we're subdividing them. We're putting them into different buckets here. Different buckets decide what they actually see. If they come in and buy, well, then we put them in direct mail sequence here. We send them direct mail. If they're clicking and opening emails, well, then we start running Facebook ads to them. The whole goal of all of this, follow-up emails, in-doc emails, direct mail, all of it is really to get them back here to a consult to sales. That's all of our goal. So again, this is exactly what this looks like. This is what a customer journey looks like when you really map it out. Now, hopefully your handwriting is a heck of a lot better here. It's not easy to do this thing with a mouse versus an actual whiteboard marker, for example. But still, the bottom line is you get the idea here. You understand. So that being said, this is exactly how you map out a customer journey. You've got to look at every stage. What do your ads look like? Stage 2, what does your landing page look like? Indoctrination email, yes, open every single email. Do you like those emails? Do you like the way that they look? Yes or no? What would you remove? What would you take out? Open all of the emails here. Does the logic make sense? What you were trying to do here in this sequence, does it make sense? We changed our approach here 6 months later. We said, no, we don't like this anymore. We want to completely turn it upside down. And now, instead of coming in and pushing webinar, now what we want to do is say, what do you want? Like, hey, let's separate you based on what? Let's take a quiz and see how fundable you are. Let's start segmenting our audiences into different groupings here to make sure our content's more relative to them. Okay, then let's take some extra steps. Let's incorporate some stuff we've never done before. Let's incorporate direct mail. Let's incorporate Facebook ads based on this. Well, if I'm going to spend money on Facebook ads and direct mail, I really don't want to spend extra money unless it makes a lot of sense. Well, who's it going to make sense for? Well, somebody opening these, or I'll give you something better, Wistia. Wistia allows us to take actions based on how long somebody's watched a video for. So if you're opening our emails and watching our videos, then what we're going to do is then we'll spend money to run Facebook ads because we know you have an interest to get into that console. And then if you buy something, even if it's cheap, well, then we're going to use the money we got here. We're going to reinvest the money into upselling you by selling you a direct mail piece, which is then going to try to get you to buy or even get you back in to the consult up here. And then with the sales team, we would start with the same thing. Well, here's the consult. What do the consult emails look like? What does that consult look like? It's a call. Well, what happens on that call? Listen to the call. The call's not organized? Well, then let's get a script created. Do we like the script? Let's review the script. Does the script make sense? What's our logic when we created the script? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this process would basically go through your entire system. This would basically go through either your division or your entire company. So to give you an example, and I don't know if I can get off this or not here, but let's see. So I'll give you another example of one we did with funding. And this is one of the things we realized. This is a huge change. And I want to show you this. You guys see how big the difference changes in our logic based on this? 6 months later, we completely changed the email content, the subdivision here. We completely changed what they're getting, when they're getting it, all because we looked at it and said, this doesn't make any sense anymore. So let me give you another example. On our finance team, we started here and we said, okay, a lead comes in right here through what we call an FBQ, a finance blueprint qualifier, okay? Now, if they come in or they come in from our sales team. Our sales team has a qualified lead and our sales team, so our sales team comes in and we said, okay, what happens here? Okay, the customer comes in from sales, and then what they do is they go to a finance officer on our team. Yeah, finance officer. The finance officer calls them back. Okay, the finance officer qualifies them, and then if the finance officer qualifies them, well, then the finance officer comes here. Let's say then they submit the deal, right? So when we looked at this, and this is an important lesson because as I told my team the day we went into this meeting, I said, listen to me. If there's any stage of a process you can eliminate it. You're only going to win if you can eliminate stages here and make the process easier, then do it. Obviously, I shouldn't show you that after that because seems very complicated because we're trying to give the customer a better experience, right? It's a customer journey. We want to give them an experience because this is what it's coming down to, guys, is that customers now, people want customized journeys now. This is just the way that it is. With all the technology we have, I like Facebook taking my data. I'm that guy. Like, take all my data. Know everything about me because I like to go to Facebook because they show me stuff that I really want to see. And so please take all my information, know everything about me, and give me a completely customized experience. That's what things are coming to. So that's what we're making the change with the change in times. So when we look at this, we say, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. A lot of the leads that come into our sales team are startups. And what we found right here was what the FO was submitting is we found that nearly 80% plus of the leads that were coming from our sales team to our finance officers were for unsecured business financing. Now, that's not all of our leads in general. We do SBA loans and a lot of other stuff with our partners and with us too, but our email sequences here tend to bring in a lot of startups. So what's happening is they're going from sales to finance officer. Then finance officer qualifies them and submits the deal. But this process could take 1 to 2 days to go through. So for the customer to come in and then for them to go through a finance officer and get the deal submitted takes 1 to 2 days. So when we looked at this on a whiteboard, we said, I don't know if that makes any sense. If all this is coming from, if all of these leads from sales are mostly for one program, then why do we do this? Why don't we just do this? Why don't we mark and remove the finance officer, teach our sales team to sell UBF instead, and then have the sales team submit it? What we would do here is we would eliminate an entire stage. We would eliminate 1 to 2 day delay in the process, and we would streamline the customer experience. And that's exactly what we did. I'm showing you this because I want you to understand what whiteboarding can do, the massive changes it makes in an organization when you actually whiteboard this stuff out. So in this case, we said sales has always, from inception of Credit Suite for 7 years, has always sent the leads to FO. FO has always qualified and submitted. But when we looked at this 1 to 2 day delay and we said, does this make sense? What if we taught our sales team to sell UBF instead? Not to your customers as partners, but to our customers, right? FOs are still dealing with all the partner leads. And that was part of our thought. We thought, well, then FOs could spend their time with partner leads and have more time to spend with our partners instead, because they're not buried with our leads. So this is a literal change we're making right now. When we whiteboarded this, we said, holy crap, why didn't we think of this before? Let's remove this step, save the customer 1 to 2 days. The customer won't have to deal with 2 people here. And then the best part is the salesperson can actually help the person get UBF. And then when the customer gets UBF and they submit the deal and the deal funds, look at this. This is how things change now. Now the deal funds. Well, then instead of them coming back all the way around to a salesperson, whoop, now the salesperson already has the leads. So now the salesperson can sell the business credit builder. And the salesperson knows the customer has the money to buy the business credit builder because they're the ones that help them get the funding. That's a huge change in an organization. But what's nice about this is we were able to eliminate an entire step in the journey, remove friction. Because when we looked at this, we said customers are confused going from here to here. There's friction. There's a problem. We have complaints here. So how do we fix that? How do we remove that friction? We know there's an issue. And okay, well, the way we remove the friction is, well, this is the issue right here, 1 to 2 days, finance officer for this whole process. By eliminating an entire step, we remove that friction. The customer no longer has to get passed from sales to FO. The customer can now go right from here to submission, to funding, to getting business credit builder. Instead of from sales to FO, to submit, to fund, back to sales, now what we've done is went from sales to submit, to fund, to back to selling the product. So in doing so, we've radically changed our actual process here by looking at this. So those are 2 real examples that came in here with Credit Suite of how we've done this, what we've done, how we've done this, and why whiteboarding it is so important. So when it comes to whiteboarding, this is exactly what it really looks like. You start from the very, very, very beginning of the process. Oh, I've got a bunch of questions. Let me get to this. How would you cross-market business credit to a customer who comes in through a funding landing page based on customer journey? Well, we don't. It's a great question, Ralph. So let's look at this to see what would happen. So if somebody comes in here from a funding landing page, they go into a funding indoctrination sequence. Now, let me see if I can pull up my email real quick here. Okay, we don't even want to see what's in this thing. It's gonna be a mess. Okay, so let me see, and I'll pull up my to-do list here, and I'll show you exactly what this really looks like here. Okay, so let me go. Just stick with me here. Okay, to do. Okay. All right, so just you get a little quick glimpse into some of my to-do list. Okay. This is what part of my to-do list looks like. So what we've come up with here is we've said, okay, in the funding sequence, we want to create 3 emails. One that educates on how cash flow financing works with a 1-minute video about it. One that talks about credit-based financing with a 1-minute video. One that talks about collateral-based financing with a 1-minute video. We also want to do another 1-minute video that explains what UBF is, because we see that 80% of them are coming in and qualifying for that program. We also want to give them an easy win here with the Secretary of State. We also want to give this new graphic, which you will have access to, we're creating now, which is awesome. It's so awesome. You're going to love this when this comes out. And it teaches them of the 125 plus aspects of fundability. So now what we're doing, and not to get too far off topic, we created this fantastic graphic that makes fundability very confusing and shows them how much is involved to show the value of what you and I sell. So our new funding indoctrination sequence will sprinkle in education emails, one about 1-minute videos of cash flow credit collateral, Secretary of State, easy when to do a search there, UBF training, that fundability quiz, the fundability graphic, right? Remember that other sequence I showed you about business credit when they can't qualify for funding? Well, then that email comes in and say, oh, you want funding, but you don't qualify? Well, you don't qualify because, this is what it takes to qualify. But hey, here's the benefits of business credit. And, here's why you can get business credit when you can't get financing. And that's what we're doing. So now in this other sequence, we're coming in and promoting them on the benefits of business credit, right? So your question is, well, how do we even introduce them to business credit if they come into funding? The answer is right here in follow-up emails. Our indoctrination sequence is only what they get for basically the first 30 days. After 30 days, they come into our normal email sequence that you guys have access to as well. And that sequence has emails about business credit and financing. So the bottom line is they will circle back and get information on both business credit and financing in these funding emails. What we're doing in the first 30 days is segmenting them based on interest and only showing them highly relevant content to their interests, because that 30 days is crucial, man. I mean, you know, you got to keep in mind that if they're coming in, Ralph, on this first 30 days and they want money and we're just money, here's tips about money, they're going to continue to watch our emails. And then in these emails, we'll introduce them to business credit down here. But if they qualify for funding, we're not even going to come in and talk business credit to them. Are you kidding? Like, if they qualify for funding, we are going to try to get them in on our sales team. But think about what happens with this change. Look at this craziness. Now that we've changed this process, what happens here? If they only want funding, Ralph, this is where it becomes a big deal. If they only wanted funding, they don't get emails for 30 days. But if they qualify for funding, right, and we get them on this console, guess what our sales team can now do? They can now offer funding. So now what happens is they ultimately will go to sales. Sales will get them funding. Sales will sell them on the value of business credit. And after they get funding, guess what sales is going to do? Sales is going to sell on the business credit builder. This is why this process made so much sense to us, because we said, oh my gosh, the sales team up here can say, do you want to continue to provide a personal guarantee for the money you get? No, I don't want to be personal. Okay, then Mr. Customer, this is a two-step process. Step one, I'm going to get you money. Step two, I'm going to get you our business credit builder to use part of that money to get away from personal guarantees. Does this make sense to you, Mr. Customer? Yes, it does. So now it doesn't matter if they only come in for funding, because ultimately they're going to go up to our sales team, and our sales team is going to sell them on both anyways, get them the money they could possibly get, and then move them back here. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not showing you all of this, right? The other 20% beyond UBF, they would go to a finance officer. We're just 80-20ing this and saying it that way. So to answer your question, Ralph, they get emails here about business credit, and they get to our sales team. Our sales team is going to play off of funding to sell business credit as well. So that's how they get exposed to both. Can we make money on selling NAV? Alicia, not yet, but that's not something we are excluding. We're trying to find out a way to do that. It's just a little bit more complicated, but NAV is about ready to get in Equifax as well to have all three. So be patient as we figure that out. We had an advanced credit monitoring product where we were letting people add accounts to Experian as a test. That did not work. The results were okay, but then the source, Credible, they no longer can report to Experian, which is why we test before we release stuff to you guys. Our NAV test is done well, but you need to understand we don't make very much money on NAV. We sell NAV for 24 bucks, and I'm pretty sure, well, to give you an example, we sell NAV for $24. So you couldn't really mark up NAV because that's about what they sell it for. And we pay NAV 10 bucks. So we make $14 on NAV. The reason that we don't introduce you guys to NAV is it's just, you don't make any money. There's really no money to be made by selling NAV. And it's a complicated process to have you guys all plugged in to your own individual NAV accounts. So we're entertaining that, but we haven't yet because there's so little money you'd ever make on this. Even we don't make a lot of money, and we do a lot of volume. And it's just so complicated to set up for the little bit of money that you make. So hopefully that answers your question. Regina says I'm getting a complaint about someone who's added to my email list. They get 3 of the same emails. Well, you can get with our support team on that, support@creditsuite.com, our partner success team. They can look at your Ultimate to figure out what's causing that. But it could be the segmentation here that we're doing in Ultimate, but let us know, and our support team will take a look at that, and we'll figure that out for you, Regina. Dwayne, I always thought that the business credit builder had to come first before funding. So is it a different type of customer? Isn't personal guarantee needed for funding? Okay, great question. That's absolutely not the case. The business credit builder never needs to be sold in lieu of funding. You can bring customers in for what's called direct funding without ever selling the business credit builder. That's a program called direct funding. It's available through our executive program. If you go to creditsuite.com/executive, you can get executive for 99 bucks a month, submit customers for funding, and get paid on those customers that are coming in for funding. So you could bring them in for funding and follow the same thing. Your sales team gets on a console, follows a script. They come in and submit the deal for funding and sell business credit builder. As a matter of fact, 2016 or 17, October, if you look back to Kylan Trower's webinars in the back office where we have all of our live webinars, Kylan Trower did 2 sessions in October of 2017, I think, maybe 16. That was his whole motto, was to bring people in for funding first. So executive, you don't have to do that. you can always go in your suite, call our partner success team from there, or just go to support@creditsuite.com and they'll help you get set up with that. You can also go to creditsuite.com/executive and get that. Yes, makes a lot of sense. Okay, perfect. So you guys can see here what customer journeys do, what happens when you map them out, why we map them out, how it works. You can see the logic here of how we change so many things based on the times changing, based on we no longer want to push them in there. And you know what? In 6 months, this is all going to probably change to something else, because this is why you do customer journeys. We've seen now here on a funding process and how we made significant changes by mapping it out here as well. So this was really the purpose of today. I want to show you this is what a customer journey looks like. You don't need a bunch of experience to do this. You just need to start from the beginning and walk through and look at every email, every landing page, every ad, every part of every step of the entire process to ask yourself, does it make sense? Should we be doing something different? So we used to believe here in sales, for example, when we did this a long time ago, what we realized was that when a customer bought, what happened was that we, after they buy, we would immediately then stop all prospecting emails to them. We would immediately stop all text to them. And our retention was in the toilet. Let me see if I can do that. There, see that's where our retention was. It was right in here. Okay, so then what we realized was that our customers didn't want to stop getting emails and text. So what we did then was we came in and we said, well, what we need to do is we need to then do post-enrollment emails and post-enrollment text. So we don't need to stop. Our customers are freaking out because they've got used to hearing from us, and then they stopped all of a sudden. So now we do post-enrollment text and post-enrollment emails after they buy. And then our retention then came out of the toilet, and now it's at a very, very, very respectable level. So almost all of the major changes we make in the organization come from what I just showed you. It's whiteboarding this process. And it's not just your business credit business with us, guys. A lot of you have another business as well. You need to do the same thing. I can't tell you how many massive changes you make when you just physically look at this in front of you and go like, this doesn't make any sense. Why do we even do that? And then everybody slaps their forehead and goes, oh my gosh, why didn't we think of this years ago? So bring your team in, bring anybody that's an advisor that can help you, map out a division, your entire company, each step of the process, look at every stage of it. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? What should you change? Is it still what you want to do? When you do that, you're going to make all kinds of changes, as you've seen in these 3 examples, to the organization that result in significant improvement in sales. So that's all it takes. I got this from Microsoft Whiteboard for free. We use physical whiteboards in our conference room to actually do them. Either way, if you have a virtual team, will work. Okay, there's all kinds of virtual whiteboards where everybody can see it. But do this, guys. You need to do it, because when you do it, you're going to start making all these palm of hand to forehead, I can't believe I missed that. And you're going to understand where these friction points are in your process. And then you're going to be able to create a more customized and better journey for your customers that then is going to help you make more sales and increase retention. The key here is to map it out every step of the way, evaluate it, make changes, and do this probably every 6 months. So I'm going to wrap up. Hopefully this helps you. I don't know why I haven't gone over this before, because this is an essential part of what we do here at Credit Suite. I can tell you we just did our finance team 3 weeks ago, and then last week we did our marketing team, and we are getting ready to go back to our sales team. Every division I manage, I will do this every 6 months with our team. And the same with Megan. Megan does a lot of this on the back end as well with the teams that she manages. So I really recommend that you all do the same. I promise you, you'll get really good results if you take the time to do this. For us, it was 4 or 5 hours to go through and map out every detail of the process. So we dedicate a full day to it, but it's well worth the time. So I don't have any other questions. If you have any other questions, go ahead and type them in. Hopefully this helps give you a lot of guidance on what to do, what the process looks like, how to map it out, what to look like, what to look at each step. You can see our logic choices. You can see how we make significant changes based on the information that we're coming across. You can see how to evaluate that on your own. You know to do it with a team. We've talked about doing it virtually or doing it in front of a real whiteboard. So you should be armed with everything you need to do. So get to work, make sure you map out and dedicate some time to do this process with you and your team, to look at each stage of your journey, see what you can improve. And then for those in the ultimate, as Regina asked, this will be updated based on our outcome of what we find, but we've still got to implement this and test it. So we're 6 months away from that probably happening. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. If you have any other questions, let us know. support@creditsuite.com. I will see you in 2 weeks. Hiram will be back with you next week as I will be in a mastermind down in Sarasota, Florida, but I look forward to talking to you all when I get back and seeing you again in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.